Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small, Indianapolis attorney, co-host with Paul Ogden, also an Indianapolis attorney. We're coming to you from Big Hat Books, 6510 Cornell Avenue, Broad Ripple area of Indianapolis. Great place to buy books, excellent selection of books here. Also, they have space here to rent for your special occasion. And the G.C. Lucas Art Gallery is displaying works of art here that are kind of cool too.
Mark, I want to buy a book on Ponzi schemes. Is there one available for you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there's an excellent book on it's a fictionalized account of a Ponzi scheme that occurred in mid-North Indiana in the 1960s
Really?
called Crime Pays.
And who wrote that book?
Mark Small did. Oh, that's me.
Right.
But
there are no pictures, and
yeah, there aren't. There are no picture of me on the back in Connor's pub, but that's it.
Sure.
Is it written in crayon?
No, it's not written.
very well.
Because I thought George Bush's book was.
Well, that's but it was ghostwritten in
That was a
crayon.
long way to go around for that joke.
Our guests are Jon Easter, his teacher, blogs at indydemocrat.blogspot.com, and Matt Stone, who blogs on Indy Student Blog. He ran for City-County Council with the Libertarian Party in 2011. Matt wanted to make one comment about the U.S. Senate race that was our previous segment real quick.
I do want to say that in 2010, the Libertarian candidates for both Secretary of State and the U.S. Senate, in my opinion, because at least one of the parties nominated 4 candidates for those respective races, ran above the baseline. You know, there's Democrats who voted for Libertarians in the Senate, Republicans who voted for Libertarian for the Secretary of State, and I think if one or two parties nominate 4 candidates for the U.S. Senate, we could see the Libertarian candidate, Andrew Horning, draw votes from both sides. I don't think he'll win, but I think it's a very possibility that the Libertarian candidate could break a double-digit percentage barrier.
And John,
10.2, 10.3%.
And John said just a couple minutes ago, when we were off camera, Horning's run very effectively before he ran against Julia Carson.
He knows his stuff. He's an excellent candidate. I think that the Secretary of State's race, though, was interesting. Mike Weary got some votes from probably Republicans that didn't want to vote for Bob Osley, or Charlie White, too. I think that was probably where some of his votes came from. The Charlie White thing was already out when that occurred. So Republicans still elected him.
Yeah. So we are going to now turn to the office of governor, which is down there, south right here. The incumbent, Mitch Daniels, decided not to run for president.
So he might be nominated for vice president.
And he couldn't.
Gingrich Daniels.
And he couldn't run for re-election. That just really. So it's an open seat. The candidates for governor, John Gregg is running from the Democratic Party. He is former Speaker of the House. Then we also have from the Republican Party, Mike Pence, who is presently a member of the United States House of Representatives, an attorney, and he was in law school at the same time we were.
He was in law school. He was the cartoonist when I was editor of the law school newspaper.
Did he ever practice law, though? Did he ever actually?
I think briefly. I don't think he did too much. He went right away into radio.
Pence also, I was going to say, don't underestimate that part of his background. He's very good.
He's good.
He's good, and I saw his speech in front of the correspondents.
Yeah,
it was very funny.
He's a very personable.
He's got two very personable candidates that are probably the two favorites here.
Well, and then the others that we have, Republican Jim Wallace, ex-Hamilton County councilman, venture capitalist, ex-healthcare executive, an Army veteran, and on the Democratic side, Thomas Lenford, who's a landscaping contractor and frequent candidate. I'll just say asterisk. And then Libertarian Party, Rupert Bonham, who was on Survivor.
Right.
So
and has been very active locally with youth issues. I think that's important.
Rupert's Kids, the organization he started, instead of blowing all of his money on hookers and drugs, he decided to do something good with his money.
But he was a bouncer at the Alley Cat, so
yeah,
I mean, so he didn't have to worry about the hookers and drugs. He'd already
as
seen
a 20-something-year-old, bouncers serve a purpose at these bars. So.
Well,
you invest in hookers and drugs, aren't you employing people?
Oh, you're a job creator.
Job creator.
Paul, you're a Republican job
I'm not
creator.
advocating that, by the way. I'm just saying.
Okay, so
how did I get here? What?
So we got John Gregg and Mike Pence as being like the two leading, it looks like.
Though Jim Wallace has a lot of money, he's doing some TV now. He's got some video that's gone viral. Not viral is not the right term.
But they're
that's
really,
out there.
they're really well done
commercials.
commercials.
Very.
Highlighting his, I think he served in the Air Force. He went to West Point.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really well done commercials. The question is if, I mean, I know he spent a lot of time during the state fair circuit, during the county fair circuit. The question is if going to these small counties, these small parties, and seeing if that will actually translate into votes. Because even though Mike Pence isn't well known outside of his district, he can get well known really easily.
I would disagree with that. I think Mike Pence is pretty well known because
I
there was a time that he didn't know whether he was running for Senate, for president, or for governor. He was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. I don't really think he did. I think that if you put Mike Pence in this candidate of Republicans, or in this group of Republicans that are running for president, I think he would have been one of the leading candidates.
Oh, yeah.
I really think he would have been because he's, even though he's, I'm sorry, Mike, he's a little wacky, but even though he's kind of got that wacky side of his personality, he doesn't come across wacky.
No.
Except when he says that a market is like Indianapolis, or a market in Baghdad is like Indianapolis.
I do agree about the personal part of it. If you see media talk about him, some Republicans have this, liberal media, he is loved by the media.
He would be the anti-Romney right now if he would have run for. I wish he would have run for president. We wouldn't have had him here.
John Gregg, though, and that's a big point. Does John Gregg have the name recognition that Mike Pence has?
He has a mustache recognition.
John Gregg does retail politics better than probably anybody in the state. If you know John, he is just as personable and as down to earth. Yeah. I mean, I don't question that. It's just that's not maybe going to win the state election when it comes up. But he is an excellent foil to Mike Pence, who comes across as personal, but kind of buttoned up. And John Gregg, of course, he's designing his campaign around his mustache. I don't know if you. And then you got Rupert with the beard, so it's going to be an interesting facial hair. Pence doesn't have any. Maybe he needs to grow some. I mean, he can grow some mutton chops or something.
Wait, no. Editorial comment. I grew mutton chops. I wore them in the late 70s and early 80s, just like Neil Young's on the cover of After the Gold Rush. There should be a statue enacted against
mutton chops.
But that's beside the point.
But is Greg hurt by how long he's been out of office? For 15 years, 20 years?
He hasn't been out that. He's only been 10 years. He went out in 2002, and he left on his own. He wasn't beaten.
Former speaker, we should mention.
He left, and this is his story, of course. So, but he left to go raise his sons. He's a single father, and he's raising his sons down there in Sanborn. I've been to Sanborn. I've been on his farm. It is quiet. You go there, I mean, you can't hear a sound. So the people down there in that district really have a lot of affinity for him. He's a good guy, and I think that if he's able to raise the money necessary, able to get his message out, he's already done some excellent YouTube stuff.
I've seen a couple of
his videos on YouTube. The problem with John is going to be playing to Indianapolis and playing to the center part of the state, because I think that he can go into the 8th district and play up there. I think he can win a district like the 8th congressional district for governor, and I think he could be competitive in the other ones. The question is, can he come to the 7th and be competitive? I think he'll be the anti-Mike Pence more when you come to the 7th, and I think how much he's affected by this whole Indiana Democratic Party mess by the party insiders, because he proposed a state chair that eventually withdrew their name, and then he threw his support back to Dan Parker coming back. So I think that'll all be a very interesting part of this too, to find out how much he was hurt by that, or if people won't have the long memories just because Mike Pence. I think Jim Wallace is an extremely interesting candidate. I know Blair Englehart, I think, is running his media. Excellent. Blair is excellent at this, so he's gonna, I think he did Bop's media. He did.
Great job on his.
Oh yeah, commercial.
Did Bill Levin's media, which Bill Levin, awesome ad for City County Council. That was wonderful.
candidates go out of state to get their media.
When you've
done.
got somebody like Blair who does a
And
tremendous job.
On another topic, to Andre Carson's credit, his media was all done right here as well.
And
I don't know
Andre's
what-
media was great. That one ad that he released.
Media's
that was,
plural.
What-
Work rate.
what-
well,
about-
and John Layton's was all, I believe, done locally too.
Yeah, Layton's had some-
Layton's ads were good.
Right. What about the fact John Gregg is a more conservative Democrat? How is he going to play in Lake County and Marion County and other places?
I think that's going to be his problem. I think it's going to be, can he be, because he's very, I mean, when he speaks, he'll say, right off, I'm pro-life and I'm pro-guns. I mean, and that's his, how he starts out. He wants to lay it on the table.
He doesn't try to do a Romney thing.
No, he
where-
doesn't. But he also says things like he understands some of the more gray area issues as well, where it's not just all, I'm pro-life, so therefore I'm against Planned Parenthood.
Well, yeah, he spoke out publicly
Right.
against defunding Planned Parenthood during the last
Defunding.
legislative session.
So he is pro-life, but he's not, he said he understands the cost of an unplanned parenthood. I think that's his line on the campaign trail. So if he can walk that line, and I think he'll play well out in the farm communities. I think he'll play better in the city than maybe a Brad Ellsworth, who people didn't talk to. I was very impressed with Brad when I talked to him. I haven't been able to talk to Joe Donnelly yet, but he's necessarily right in that same mold. I think he's a little, because he's John Gregg. Sit down and have lemonade.
And the right to work issue could really help John Gregg because people would be really out there.
Well,
Because that's the
and
one issue that Democrats seem united on, whether you're an urban Democrat or a rural Democrat.
It just
that-
can't all go to
the
the
Republicans-
they're all.
The Republicans are already misplaying this. I think you saw by the
Daniels
releasing
has an
this-
ad on the radio out about.
Well,
racial-
yeah, right to work. Daniels has now come out in support because he's a lame dunk. He didn't do it last time around. I think he said, let's stay away from the wedge issues. Well, he's full in the wedge issues now. And I think, I don't think the Republicans are playing it right. They release these issues or the standards for the State House now, where you can only have 3,000 people in the State House, and
Yeah.
you can't yell loud enough to...
You might have to
do the
support
leg-
Mike Delph because he's thinking about introducing legislation to overturn
I
that
will gladly
regulation.
be Mike Delph's
Because
best
he
friend
cited
on that particular
the
issue.
Indiana State Constitution about you
Right.
rights to peacefully assemble in the general
And we should
assembly.
clarify, it's 3,000 people in the State House, but it includes
Right.
people there.
The
for
1,700 that people were
Yeah,
worth
so
it.
it's only like 13.
And the thing is with time, place, and manner restriction, which has been found to be legal, and they're certainly within their rights to maybe do this but it just doesn't look right. I mean,
also-
at this time, right now, when this right to work issue is going to be happening, we've seen all these things in Wisconsin and other places, to say that we can't yell loud enough that if it can be heard in the chamber, then we can send that's just that's ludicrous.
Ironically, I think the precursor to the Tea Party rallies here in Indiana was an event at which Paul organized, and which we both spoke. I spoke at
Michelle
that.
criticized.
I understand, yeah. But if anybody would have a rally in the State House, those are the worst acoustics of any place in which I've ever spoken as a public place. I've spoken a lot of places. It's awful. Everything echoes off of the marble walls in there incredibly. Does anybody know about the positions of Thomas Lenford, who's the other Democrat who's running?
He's a person.
I tried to. He had a really rudimentary website when I saw it. He's got really no money, I don't think, or will compete with Greg.
Okay, this is the end of this segment on Governor. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Okay. I did it again.
Gat Books, 6510 Cornell Avenue. If not there, that'd be your first choice, would be on